The main downside of this album is the goddamn electronic drums. What's up, guys? This is Rikk. Like I had said in my last update video, I've been meaning to do a couple reviews of different albums. So I'm going to take some time and do a large review of a bunch of different albums. They're all within the horror punk genre, or at least very influenced by horror punk. I want to, first of all, thank all of the bands who submitted to me. They either sent me the tracks or they sent me the links and gave me the permission to do a review on their music. So I really do thank all of them for that. And, overall has been really cool to listen to some of these bands. And I hope that everyone who is watching will go out and listen to their stuff and support them as well. So to start off, the first band that contacted me, and they ended up being the first band that I listened to on this list, they are Freakshow Sinema. Musically, it's like a very Wednesday 13 inspired horror punk band. They're not reinventing the wheel, but it is a definite solid album. There are 8 tracks. They're all within 3 minutes. And I appreciate this album because it is well recorded, and as a drummer, I really enjoyed the drums sounding clean and punchy. As typical Wednesday 13 styled bands, the vocals are harsh and sort of raspy throughout the album, sort of reminiscent of somewhere between Wednesday 13 and Chad from Mudvayne. To break up the limited range of the vocalist's delivery, what they did was really smart, and they had like a few layered sections of chants and the main vocal with some background vocals as well. I thought that was a good idea because as cool as his vocals were for what they're going for, like I said, it is a little bit limited. And after a while, just hearing that style the entire time could probably get a little bit difficult to listen to the whole thing if it didn't have those sort of background layered parts. With that being said, the music itself is really good. Like I said, everything sounds well recorded, and everything sounds good and dynamic. The downside, like I said, might be the vocals at times, sort of forced a little bit. I think if the vocalist works on that, then they'll be even more solid going forward. The highlight of the album is Love Insanity. The whole track is pretty bouncy. It has some cool chants, like I said, to break up the main vocals, and it is really dynamic. There's a lot of cool dynamics about it, guitar parts, drum parts. It's a very fun song, and I think it stands out the most to me on the album. Again, that is Freakshow Sinema, and for all of these albums, I'll be leaving the links down below for all of you guys to check them out. Moving on, the next album is from Grave Robber. You guys might know of Grave Robber. They're a horror punk band from Indiana, I believe. They do the full costume, and I think they're probably one of the main bands from that scene up there. And I think they're one of the main bands from the Christian side of horror punk. So their latest album, it starts with a movie-style intro, like most of their stuff does, and then it turns into a more traditional horror punk album. Sort of what I got from the vibe that I got is very Misfits influenced, something like Danzig era Misfits with some better production. Everything sounded pretty spot on. The singer has like those crooning Danzig inspired vocals, and I think the moments where he's actually yelling versus the crooning are probably the stronger parts in his delivery and his performance. They do have really well placed chants as well, and yeah, overall it's a solid album. I think the downside of the album is that the entire thing sort of blends together. Everything sounds like it might be being played in maybe a similar key or with similar notes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but every song blends really seamlessly together, and it's sort of hard to know when one song ends and another begins. And yeah, it's just a little bit of critique. I don't know what it is lately, but I think I've been pretty nitpicky when it comes to vocals. Just like I said about the Freakshow Sinema album, I think that Grave Robber's vocalist, while good for what he's doing, is definitely not my favorite singer by any means. I know that they have songs on previous albums where the vocals sounded better, but it is an album that I think any horror punk fan would really enjoy. And if the Christian part is really something that stops you from checking it out, it's not, their stuff's not like super apparently Christian stuff. So there's no preaching in the album, at least from what I can tell. The highlight is actually their track called The Evil Dead. It's really energetic, and it almost has a surfy, catchy, like, vibe to it musically, and it does have some woes, which I'm calling the White Stripes style woes, because it sounds like the Fell in Love with a Girl by the White Stripes. It has that whoa, whoa, whoa. It has woes like that in that almost exact pattern. That's how I remember this one in particular, and like I said, it's just energetic and really catchy. Another shout out on the album is the song The Swarm. I think it has a little bit more vocal variety than the other tracks do, sort of keeping everything interesting. Overall, I mean, I'm going to be saying this for everything on this list. Everything's pretty solid. I just do have, my little nuances and critiques that I think are worth mentioning, but I do recommend all these albums to anyone watching because they are really good albums, and I know we all have different opinions on things, and these are just mine, and I hope that they don't give you any reason not to listen to the albums because they're all good for what they are. Next up is a band or a solo project called Death Embrace. It's a project from the UK, and it is 100% Danzig worship. However you feel about that is what it is. There's a little bit of Sam Hain, but mostly Danzig style stuff. Like I said, for previous stuff, music's really solid. I think the vocals are not quite up to the caliber of Danzig, which I think, a lot of bands who are in the horror punk genre are either aspiring to be Danzig or Michael Graves, or, if Anathema von Stichenstein is correct, then hopefully bands will start trying to sound like Goolsby, but, Goolsby and TB were also influenced by someone at some point. So these guys, or this band in particular, he is trying to be Danzig. That's cool. He doesn't really hit the mark on the Danzig vocals very completely, but the music itself, I think, makes up for that. He has sort of, there's some sort of like tonal thing that I'm, at least what I'm thinking, but I also think I might be a little tone deaf, so who knows. I think that the whole album is fucking cool. They're not, the vocals aren't something so bad that you can't listen to it. I think once you get further into the album, it works. It all works. And again, if you're not used to bands that are trying to sound like other bands, then maybe this is an album for you. But if you like Danzig, if you like bands like Zombeast, and are into that style of horror goth metal amalgamation, then I think you'll dig this. The main downside of this album is the goddamn electronic drums. I cannot stress this enough. I hate electronic drums because I, as a in vivo drummer, can tell the difference typically, and they just sound too fake for me. With that being said, the highlight on the album is a track called Eden to Sin. It's got hella riffs, and you can't really go wrong with like pitch harmonics style stuff. Pinch harmonics and hammer-on type things. I love that in fucking everything. Hardcore, post-hardcore, metal, all that cool stuff. You got the really evil sounding pinch on the guitar, and that's just boners for days, guys. So Eden to Sin, that is definitely my favorite track on the album. And I'm sure it'll be yours as well. Like I said, it just has that cool Danzig style riff, and the main stuff going on in the background after the riff goes away, because obviously you can't always play the money riff. That's pretty solid as well, and it is definitely interesting to listen to. So talking about one-man band projects, this next album is a split with two one-man band projects. The first band is Scarecrow Ceremony, and the second band is my boy Cemetery Static. They're both from Texas. The split's called Texas Horror Punk Massacre, and they're doing they're doing like a throwback to lo-fi, hardcore, punk, things like that. I think this is the album that I have a little bit of the more critique for. Scarecrow Cemetery, I think, has decent ideas, but is not well executed, in my opinion. Typically, I like a lot of stuff, but the vocals for his section are an immediate turnoff for me, because instead of yelling or talking or doing anything like that, he's sort of whispering, and he's doing this like I can, like that sort of vocal, and it just does not work for me at all. Musically, it's a little sporadic, but I think that works for that style of chaotic hardcore stuff like that. But it's just those vocals, man. Some of them are supposed to be a little gothy, and so they're a little like deeper, but it's still just whispered vocals. And it was really, that one was really difficult for me to listen to, his section, just because of those. So sorry, Scarecrow Cemetery, if you're watching this, if you can sing, fucking sing. Otherwise the music itself isn't bad. I like the ideas you had. I like the song Don't Go Into the Basement, I think it was, because it's a clip and then like a short song of just the words "Don't Go Into the Basement." I think that's fucking cool. I've done shit like that for JXV. We had like Hostel, and it was just words from fucking about Hostel, or like movie quotes or things like that. Like, I get that. I'm all about that. I think it's fun, but just vocals, man. On the other side of the split is Cemetery Static. I actually enjoyed his part. I wish the music itself, though, was a little bit turned up, and maybe some of the reverb on the vocals was turned down. But I do understand what he was going for. I know that his style of stuff is to homage old school hardcore. I think mainly California hardcore, Adolescence, JFA, The Faction, stuff like that. Like, I think it's an homage to that, but also a horror punk band. So imagine the adolescents thinking about horror music or about horror movies. That's what I feel like Cemetery Static is, and I do really enjoy his section of the split. My favorite track on it, which is the highlight for me, is Cannibal del Holocaust. Very aggressive, very catchy, like old school hardcore style horror punk track. That's definitely my favorite track on the album, and I do think that it is cool that both bands have a good amount of songs on their sides. They're all really quick because they're in true punk fashion, but I like that they have a good amount, because whichever side you enjoy, you get to hear, instead of just two songs like typical splits would have. So lastly, for this review, is a band called Sepherin. So Sepherin is a friend of mine, and I'm almost 100% sure that it is just him and like one other guy. And he had a full band at one point, I'm pretty certain, and he's working on getting another band together for it. This is a really solid album. In my opinion, it could be mixed into a pile of middle school bangers with like 69 Eyes, Atreyu, him, Aiden, Sing the Sorrow style AFI stuff, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Not in a mean way, but that's the vibe it gives, which is awesome to me. I don't really think we have a lot of bands that sound like that anymore. It's definitely, I don't know why, but imagery in my head, I can imagine someone in like one of those Ville Valo style jackets, like riding on a skateboard and some TUKs. It just has that like gothy rock, horror punk influence style going on with it. It's not overly campy, and it's not too serious. I think it has a good mixture of both, because it has some traditional horror punk stuff in there to kind of make it a little bit less serious in the style. The downside of it is goddamn fake drums. That's it. It's a good album, but the drums are fake, and I can tell. It's funny though, because Ryan of Sepherin actually asked me to be his drummer the day after JXV broke up, which was also funny because I got like 4 different invites to play drums from other bands, and if I had the time, I wish I could, because the stuff is killer. Enough about my bitching, but overall, it's a really solid album. I think right now my favorite track on it is Hell Nights. Again, like all the other stuff, I really appreciate the catchiness of the track and the dynamics to it. It sounds like live it could be a sort of more of an anthemy song, at least in my opinion. It has like a pause in the main part. I'm for those who don't know, really solid, or really into solid pauses on tracks that have like yelled vocals and really good pinched harmonic guitar riffs and really solid drums. I mean, it could be basic drums, but if they sound solid and are well mixed, I can get on board with that. I mean, most of the stuff I'm not too picky, but this is a review, so why am I going to give you all the good stuff all the time and not mention some of the negatives? So yeah, like I said, that was just my review of these albums. I hope you guys go out and check all of these bands out, and leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, share, because I want to know everyone's opinion on them as well. Am I wrong? Maybe I'm just being too picky. Do Danzig style guitar riffs give you boners too? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. share, tell your friends. Stick around for other content because I will be doing some of the other stuff soon, hopefully. Yeah, as always, I do appreciate everyone watching and everyone submitting albums. And I'll catch you guys later. As always, this has been Rick or Treat, and you've been watching The Pumpkin Patch.